And welcome back to yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. In this week's episode, I will start by giving an update to my portfolio. Afterwards, I will share a funny meme and of course tell the story behind why I think this is particularly important when it comes to investing. So let's start with the portfolio update. The first thing we immediately notice is that there was a green circle for this week's episode, meaning that the portfolio is up in value compared to last week. If we go to the Portfolio Values tab, you can see that the value of the portfolio has increased with $3,300, and at the same time you can see the cost has increased by $120. If we then go back to the overview arc, now the portfolio pie chart only has 6 different pieces. Last week there was 8, meaning that I have been doing a lot of selling and buying within this week. So if we go back to the overview arc here and scroll all the way to the top, then you can see a lot of changes has happened since there is now only 16 companies in the portfolio, meaning that I have sold out of 4 companies and I have bought 1 new. And if we go to the history tab here, then you can see that I have sold out of Suncor Energy, LTC Properties, Carnival Corporation and Verizon Communications. I have only sold a piece of Verizon Communications which I held on Revolut, and these 4 shares were the last 4 remaining shares which I had on Revolut. All of them I held with a loss, so in total I have purchased shares for $9,078 there. Now I have sold them for $6,900, leaving me with a loss of a little more than $2,100. And these $6,922 plus an additional $120 I have all invested into Agree Realty Corporation instead. So a natural question to ask is of course, why did I decide to sell shares in these 4 companies? Well, basically this is due to the fact that it's part of my strategy of leaving Revolut before my middle subscription ends here in the middle of February. And since I do not want to renew my subscription, I decided that it was better for me to exit all my positions. And now that I have done so, let me try and share some interesting statistics. So if we go to the history tab here, I have just made this temporary calculation to try and see how many times I have earned and how many times I have lost money on my investments. So for instance, you can start by seeing that I had a loss on Delta Airlines and on Tailored Brands. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see that goes for Suncor Energy, LTC, Carnival Corporation and Verizon Communications. So in total I have had 29 investments on Revolut and I have lost money on 6 of them. That actually means that in 79% of my investment cases I have earned money on my investments. And that actually makes me really happy, because my original idea is, if I can invest and be right in 6 out of 10 cases, that means that I should be doing well in the long run. So of course I am extremely excited to see that I have been right in close to 80% of my investment cases. And keep in mind, all of this is just with the shares appreciating in value. There is nothing regarding dividends in here. That simply just comes as a bonus on top. And speaking of dividends, let's go to my favorites tab, namely the dividends tab. Then you can see this has been quite a modest week, since I have received a little more than $25 in dividends, and those came from General Dynamics. At the same time, perhaps a little more interestingly, is if we look to the estimated yearly income, we can see that this number has also dropped a little from last week compared to this week. And this is due to the fact that the dividends which I was supposed to receive from LTC Properties, Suncor Energy and Verizon Communications is actually higher than the amount of dividends which I am expected to receive from Agree Realty Corporation. If we then continue with perhaps a more interesting question to you, why have I decided to buy Agree Realty Corporation? Well, first of all, from my spreadsheet, you can see that they are located within the real estate sector and that they are paying out a monthly dividend. This is obviously not enough to decide whether or not you want to invest in this business. So if you don't know anything about the business, then we just do a quick Google search. we go to the investor relations page, and just on the front screen here, we can see that there has been an 87.5% total shareholder return over the past 5 years, and since the company IPO'd in 1994, there has been an 13% compounded average annual total return. And at the same time, there has been a 5.5% compounded annualized dividend growth over the past 10 years. So all of this looks very promising. If we then look to the top left corner here, rethinking retail. So what Agree Realty is doing is they are buying properties and then they are renting it out to their tenants. And hold on for a minute. You know that I already have Store Capital. So what is now the difference between Agree Realty and Store Capital? Well, if we go to the investor presentations from January 2022, we can see here that 67% of their tenants are investment grade in Agree Realty. And if you remember from my episode when I talked about Store Capital, they have a lot of tenants that are not investment grade and they are structuring different leases. So what I'm trying to do when I'm buying into this company is I'm trying to get exposure to a different part of the real estate market. Meaning Walmart, for instance, is the biggest tenant here. Here you can just see some of the really big brand household names which are definitely within the investment grade category. So now that you know that it's because I want a different real estate exposure and I want to have some exposure to the investment grade tenants, and this was one of the real estate investment trusts which I could find that have a high exposure towards this segment. If we then go to what the insiders are doing, I mean, take a look at how many different insiders has been buying this since March 2020 and look at the prices at which they have been willing to pay. I mean, all the way up to almost $71.50. So when I'm buying in at around 64, well, I mean, if the insiders are supposed to know what they are doing, this was really a convincing argument for me for why I wanted to purchase a piece of this particular business. So now that you know more about my reasons for buying into Agree Realty Corporation, it is meme time. So if we immediately head over to Reddit, every economist since 2021. Inflation isn't going to happen. You start to apply makeup to your face. Inflation happened, but it's transitory due to bottlenecks. You apply even more makeup. Okay, it's not transitory, nor have the bottlenecks resolved, but it will be easing soon. You now apply the artificial hair and more makeup. Okay, it's not easing, it's accelerating. We don't have a clue. And now you have a complete clown of an economist. So this meme very much reminds me of a famous quote. So let me show it to you. If you Google John Kenneth Galbraith quotes, there are two kinds of forecasters. Those who don't know and those who don't know they don't know. So if we apply this meme together with the quote, well, then you have a pretty good idea about how I invest based on the macroeconomic outlook. Because as the quote says, there's the ones who don't know and there's the ones who don't know they don't know. So in essence, I don't try to fool myself and say that I will have a competitive advantage in trying to guess what the macroeconomics will do and invest based on that, because chances are I will end up looking like the guy at the bottom here. I simply do not believe that I can consistently predict what the market is going to do. To me, it is like looking at a broken watch, and I mean, at least twice a day it will show the right time. So obviously in the news media you will see a lot of people, oh, this person got it right. But I mean, every now and then they will be right if you just predict enough. So that is why, for instance, it is so key for me that I show you the history in the portfolio. What have I previously been purchasing and what have I sold? How are my positions currently performing. You can see everything. There's a great deal of transparency here compared to when you look to an article in the news media and you see all these doomsday prophecies that the market will severely drop very soon. Because take a look at those people and see how many times they have been predicting that the stock market will fall. It is literally like watching a broken clock. Every now and then they will be right, and that will be their claim to fame, because the journalists usually do not dig into the details and actually show how many times have these people been predicting and how many times were they actually wrong with their predictions. So this is why, even though we are looking into increasing interest rates, that I keep on investing, simply due to the fact that I don't know exactly how much or for how long or when this will happen, and I should still expect to receive a lower return on my investments when interest rates are going up. As long as I can find attractive investments, then I will keep investing, no matter how the outlook of the macroeconomics are. So that actually sums it up for yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. I'm really happy to announce that I have now closed all my positions on Revolut, because that means that I should be able to follow my strategy more in the future and not selling shares when I ideally did not want to, meaning that I would in the future be able to only sell shares if I believe the company is highly overvalued, or due to the fact that I have completely lost faith in the company. Otherwise, I should simply just keep adding money into the companies or add additional companies into the portfolio. So if you have enjoyed the content, then please consider leaving a like, and until I see you next time, bye!